Hi, Paul Sackett, Good News Planet. I'm speaking to William Arntz. Hi, William. How are you?
Very good. And you?
Okay, good. Will is the creator of What the Bleep. That was a wonderful movie, very interesting, and has done many other things. And he's and his wife, actually Deirdre Hade, along with a photographer and an image person, Endre Balogh, have created a book called, in parentheses now, Not So Little Book of Surprises. What a cute title. How come that is your title?
The Not So Little Book. Well, there's two reasons. The reason it's the Book of Surprises is when I was deciding to put this thing together, it just kind of hit me that what a surprise is, and a surprise is really a doorway to transformation. There's all this biochemical stuff that happens when you have a surprise, and you can use that to really transform yourself. So that's why it's a book of surprises. The reason it's the Not So Little Book of Surprises is originally it was going to be a little book. It was called The Little Book of Surprises, which was going to be 5x7. Just a little book you carry with you. And after we started getting the images from Endre Balogh and laying them in there, we were all like, wow, these are so good. I wonder what it looks like in a bigger format. So we printed a 9x11 book, and I had to come up with a title for that to keep it different. I said, well, it's the Not So Little Book. And the title stuck, and we got rid of the little book, and that's how we have the Not So Little Book.
So so in essence, the title of and to itself is a surprise,
yeah.
And as life is, isn't every moment it could be, depending if you see it there. Now you're actually, is this true? A research laser physicist? It's kind of a serious commentary. Is that right?
Yeah, that does sound serious. That was my first job after I graduated from college with degrees in engineering and math and physics, and I got a job down in Florida working on what was to become the Star Wars initiative. This was back in '72 before Star Wars came out, so they just called it high energy lasers, and I worked on modeling those high energy lasing systems, which is physics. So it sounds very impressive, I know. So
well, that's the year I started work as well myself, 72. I started CBS TV, and I remember going to Epcot Center when it just opened up a zillion years ago, and I found that place to be extremely fascinating. And I think the what's it called? There was oh boy, I can't remember the imagination. No, Figment. Figment was the of Epcot Center. The boy, help me here. Well, I can't think of it. It's sort of like a football team mascot or something like that.
Yeah.
The Figment of Imagination. Let me ask you a question, because my grandson spends 48 hours a day with Star Wars. What actually is Star Wars?
Well, Star Wars, of course it was the movie. And what happened was the idea back in the early 70s was, the whole nuclear thing was happening, and the thing was the fear was the Russians would shoot their missile up at you. Then you had an anti-ballistic missile, which you would shoot up at the missile, and hopefully your missile would hit their missile and destroy it. The trouble with that was, who knows whether you'd hit it or not, and by the time you knew that you missed, it was too late to do anything else, and then that was the end. So the whole thing about a laser is it's like a big flashlight, right? So the idea was you'd shine this laser, you'd shine a little laser, and you could actually put it right on their missile, and then you turn on the big laser and basically melt the warhead when it's out in outer space, and that would be a great way to get rid of it. It was a great idea, but the trouble, back then the idea was they were going to put one of these huge lasers inside a 747, fly it up at 70,000 feet, and then, melt Russian missiles out of the sky. The trouble was you couldn't, because of the atmosphere would take the laser beam, and they called it thermal bloom, would disperse it, so it was never powerful enough to do the job. And then old Ronald Reagan came along, and the program was kind of slowing down because they realized it was a problem. The only way to do it was to put these lasers orbiting up in space. And so then Ronald Reagan, because he was very good at this thing, came up with calling it Star Wars. And apparently, I've been told that they kind of knew it was never really going to work, but the Russians were so freaked out by it, they said, let's keep doing it, and maybe we can end this Cold War. And that's what happened.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
It's like the Sputnik. I think there was just a battery in that Sputnik. I once interviewed somebody who's involved with that. There's really nothing in that thing. But it sure scared some people. Tell us about, let's go back, if you don't mind, to What the Bleep. And let our audience, because it's still available, and tell us what that was about.
Well, What the Bleep Do We Know was really a movie about science and spirituality because, obviously I was into science, and then I started becoming more and more interested in meditating and metaphysics and spirituality, and I spent 10 years with one teacher and then another 10 years with another teacher, and this was really in-depth study of meditating and awarenesses and whatnot. And it was, around the year 2000, and I got to tell you, I got a little tired of being a second-class citizen, because back then, if you told people you meditated, they thought you were crazy. They thought you were going to be like Jim Jones and eat some Kool-Aid and do something weird. Mm-hmm. And the thing was that my experience of being in the spiritual practice was this was not something you just kind of la, la, la. I mean, it was a very intense practice. There was traditions going back thousands and thousands of years. And, I thought, I'm kind of tired of people thinking we're just a bunch of flake balls. And then, of course, I had the interest in science, and a lot of the science, particularly quantum mechanics, but also when you get into the biological sciences, they're really saying very similar things to what the mystics have been saying. Mm-hmm. And quantum physics, of course, is the one that people always point to because it's just so strange. There's so many things that particles do that just make no sense, but that's the way it is. So I decided to let's put this together and make a film. It started off as a little documentary, just a kind of a standard little documentary thing. But then I got carried away and eventually came up with animation for it, and then I brought in two people, Mark Vicente and Betsy Chassie, to co-direct it with me. And, we put this thing together and eventually came up with I thought just if you have talking heads, it's interesting to a very small amount of people, but it's, I kind of get bored by it. So we came up with a dramatic story to go with it. So, part of it's a dramatic Hollywood movie, part of it's a documentary, and part of it's an animation thing, and dealing with really spirituality and science and how you can use those to transform your life.
I'm going to go look at it again. Somehow I recollect, was Emoto in that with the water?
Yeah, that was one of the things. Yeah, there was a clip there where in the dramatic part of the film, Marlee Matlin, the actress who plays Amanda, mm-hmm. she goes down into a subway, and in the subway they have a display of the Emoto, and there's a guide there telling people what his experiment was about taping words to bottles of water and seeing how, when frozen, seeing the crystals that it would be created there. And I know for a lot of people, that scene was the one that just really got them. They're like, "Oh my God, this stuff is happening." So it was, mm-hmm. It was really groundbreaking. And then, of course, the film What the Bleep was quite controversial. Mm-hmm. A lot of people said, "Oh, that's just that's not true." And then there was a big storm around that and whatnot. But that was really one of the pivotal scenes in the movie. And again, we could have just presented it like in a documentary. Dr. Emoto has done these amazing studies, that kind of thing. Right, but I found that by introducing it in a dramatic sense, you're not beating people over the head with the information. You're just sort of suggesting it there and then letting it go. And I think for a lot, that's the way to communicate a lot of this information.
You know, I was fortunate to work on the Brain series at PBS for a couple of years early on in the 80s. And I know your wife talks about life and is very spiritual, as you are. You both are. And that's, I believe, why your book and all good things come your way. And she talks about light and light with her mother. And you know, I think when we put lights in front of a winter depressed person, or the National Institute of Health did that, and you could see with the PET scan changes, right? So in essence, I think, you know, with sort of spirituality and light and these kinds of things, I guess we sometimes need to see something solid, or what we're used to, right? Traditional, let's call it traditional medicine, to believe it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're all different. What really gets to us are different. Some people are much more, you know, Harry Truman, show me. You know, it's got to be, you know, real physical. And other people, you know, can go just with the analogy. One thing I want to mention, just a personal note to you, is when I was doing research for What the Bleep, I watched those PBS brain things. There was great information in there, and really, you know, the brain research, which was part of What the Bleep, really was just really starting to take off around then, and learning. I remember growing up, they said, you know, after you're a certain age, your brain no longer makes any more brain cells. And I heard that for years, and then they found, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, it's like, whoops, we were wrong. Actually, the brain is quite happy to make more brain cells.
Yeah. There you go. Well, thank God, because it's I know that I could use new ones on a daily basis.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
So let me ask you, and then I'll get a little more to the book, because it's magnificent, it's beautiful, and so on. Have you got another movie in you?
Well, you know, that's Deirdre keeps telling me, yes. It's funny, she calls the book Bleep 1.5. Okay. It's not quite the sequel. And in some respects, you know, I laid this book, the Little Book of Surprises, the way that it got together was someone suggested to me, you could take a bunch of quotes and poetry. Deirdre's been teaching for 10 years, and there's all these transcripts. You could take those quotes and put them together with some images and create a book. And, you know, it just kind of stuck with me. And I thought about it for a day or two, and then, boom, I came up with the title, Little Book of Surprises. And then I did like a documentary filmmaker does, where you just read through transcripts, and I start pulling out the things that interest me. And then we were going to put some images with it, and Deirdre has worked with Endre Balogh, who's amazing photographer, and also a world-class violinist. I mean, he was telling me he's soloed with the Berlin Philharmonic and the London Philharmonic, and he soloed with the L.A. Philharmonic when he was 8 years old. You know, he's one of those. And his photography is at that level of artistic. So I said, well, I wonder what Endre has, and I looked on his website, and he had like 3,000 images laying around. I'm like, oh my God, this is a treasure trove. And so in 3 months, I basically put the book together, and it's very, you know, people who have read through it say, wow, it really has a feel of it's a movie in book form, but it's not a book about a movie. It just, there's a whole thing where it takes you on a journey. So that's really how the book came together. But unlike Bleep, which is very focused really on the science, this, because it's all the writings and teachings of Deirdre, is really focused on the mystical. And you know, Bleep, we sort of went to science, sort of validating a lot of the spiritual experiences. This sort of starts off with the premise saying, look, we've all had spiritual experiences. We've all had mystical things, even to the point of just going, oh, I wonder what Martha's doing, and 10 seconds later Martha calls on the phone. just from simple things like that to profound things. And so really the book is going more into talking about the mystical and when the doorway is open, because Deirdre has lived in those worlds since she was 3 years old. So it's really much more of a mystical journey than anything else. Now, of course, since I have a sense of humor, if you know from watching What the Bleep, so I also pulled out the quotes that I think are kind of funny and in your face. So
I'm going to read something. Actually, for me, I knew you got some beautiful words from Jack Canfield and from Donna Caron, and you got from John Gray. Beautiful stuff. We get, when I do these kind of interviews, someone sends me something about the book a little bit as well. And I want to read something here for the audience, because it's this alone. I'll tell you what this even reminds me. It reminds me of, like, you guys are like a spiritual John Steinbeck, how he can in one paragraph tell you something that could actually be, 3 years long of life. An eye-catching, beautiful, and whimsical book. The not-so-little book of surprises brings that home in, of course, surprising ways. A mystical journey in consciousness, an exploration of what touches our hearts, a glimmering reflection on nature and ourselves, and plea for becoming our better angels are just some of the touchstones in store for readers as they experience the poetic exquisiteness of this gem. That's a beautiful thought. What a good thing.
Yeah. Well, and I was the thing about Deirdre and her teachings, and I mean, there's poetry in there too, is she's able to and say things in ways that's very unique. And when I was looking at these quotes, I found that I was always finding the ones that said something that you kind of knew about, but she would say it in a way that I'd never seen any. I've read a lot of spiritual books, but would say it in a way that I had never ever seen it said before or heard it said before. And that's really where the idea of surprise came from, was that her writing, her teachings, these quotes are really surprising. And often you'll get to the end, the last line of one of these quotes, which is only a paragraph or two long, and it'll do the quick 90-degree turn, and it's kind of like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. So, I just think they're so magical, and I can rave about them since I didn't write them, I can say how wonderful they are, because if I wrote them and said how wonderful they are, people would be going, oh boy, someone's got an ego out of control.
There you go. But you're just supporting your wife, though. That doesn't hurt either. You're a smart man.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Let me ask you. You mentioned a comedy or something that you give us an example of what's in store for the readers in your mind.
Well, from the book. There's one quote from the book. There's a picture. The photo is a picture of a duck, mother duck with like 5 little ducks behind. And the quote goes, "That mystical world, that's the world where we enter in the chrysalis of becoming undone. But when you enter in the chrysalis of being undone, you damn well better have your ducks in a row. Otherwise, it's going to be like splat on the windshield." So, I read that it's going to be like splat on the windshield. I mean, I don't really usually see that in treatises on Buddhist thought, for instance. So, I read that, and the thing is, it's true. That's absolutely true, and people don't say that. But, people think, oh, well, I'm just going to have this mystical experience, and, it's going to be great and everything. But there's a reason people go on spiritual retreats and do these things, and you're learning techniques so that when the doorway to the mystical world's open, you don't go crazy. So that's why, a quote like that, it's actually, there's a lot of wisdom in that quote. Otherwise, you're going to be like splat on the windshield. And it's funny, but it gets the point across. So those are, they're not all like that, but there's a healthy dose of those in the book that are just, they're fun to read, and yet they're really communicating something that I think is important.
It doesn't hurt to contemplate your navel every once in a while. Sit down and smell the roses.
Yep. And have a good laugh.
And have a good laugh. The whole, we lost John Glenn or whatever yesterday, I guess, and we are flying away in outer space right now, and we can take it all pretty darn seriously if we want to try that. But the fact is, we're flying away in outer space right now.
Yeah, isn't that something that the astronauts said when they got out there? They said, "Oh my God, we realized we didn't go into outer space. We've always been in outer space."
There you go. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. I have the cover of the Daily News. Men walk on the moon.
Yeah.
This is wild stuff. This website also, you got a beautiful website because you got a beautiful book. You feel good about that?
Yeah, there's and on the website's bookofsurprises.com. And if you go in there, you go down just a little bit, there's something we put together called a flip book. And the flip book's sort of an electronic version of the book, but it's only about 14 pages. But this flip book technology, I was able to embed some videos in the flip book. And there's one of me where I'm sort of introducing the whole concept of surprises, and then there's 3 or 4 with Deirdre. And Deirdre, who among other things was an actress for a while, is quite good on camera, and she explains some of the stuff. I even have a funny little bit in there with fish swimming around, doing lines from the book. So anyway, if people go in there and just check out the flip book, because they'll get a sense of kind of what the book is like, and then if they like it, they can go get one.
There you go, and it's easy to navigate. To peek inside, watch our video flip book. Very nice. Let me ask you 2 last questions. Thank you so much for taking some time to speak with us, and congratulations once again on I'm sure will be gigantic success and in the sales, but also in people learning from some of your wonderful, beautiful thoughts here. I ask everybody these 2 questions. What's good news for them? So what's good news for you?
What's good news for me?
What would be?
Well,
any aspect of your life.
The good news is it's kind of funny. One of the surprises for this book for me was a bunch of the quotes just stick in my mind. And again, they're short, they're concise, and there's one where it talks about the beings of light say, if we can just get enough people in the consciousness to hold the vibration of love. Not enlightenment, just love. Just hold the vibration that, we'll get the forests back. There'll be the 2 lions that are left will multiply. We'll get them back. We'll get the streams back. We'll get the beauty in nature back. And that sort of hopefulness, that sometimes it seems dark and we can't, everything's all messed up and blah, blah, blah. But saying that, you just hold the vibration of love, and it's not like, you have to go out and be, care for the homeless. I mean, it's just something, an inner state, and just by holding that, you're raising the vibration of everything. And, there's a pathway to all the ills that we all see in the world. We can get rid of and rise above. So for me, that's the good news.
That's a beautiful, beautiful thought. And my last question actually leads to that, and it's actually something that we're really working very hard doing. We're very involved with world peace and the International Day of Peace, September 21st, as declared by the United Nations. 193 countries agreed to a day of peace. And they've asked the world, and 193 countries raised their hands, that at 12 noon worldwide, we would take a moment for peace. And so we've done some events in Times Square and Central Park for maybe 15 years or so now, and I've asked thousands of people what is peace for them. So, and I'd love to have you and your group and family all involved with our Peace Day outreach. And actually one of the first Peace Sunday, started out there in L.A. And so and that's my last question is, what does peace mean to you?
Well, what does peace mean to me? You know,
go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll tell you, in one of Eckhart Tolle's books, he talks about a little story of Krishnamurti. And Krishnamurti, towards the end of his life, he finally told all his students, I'm going to tell you my secret. My secret. I'm going to finally tell you my secret. So all the students get all worked up. Okay, we're finally going to get it. They think it's going to be some magical code that they say it and then they're enlightened or whatever. So it finally gets the day he says, okay, here's my secret. I don't mind what happens. So to me, and I think about that all the time, you know, something comes up and I just get worked up or something like that. And I think peace is not minding what happens. Because let's face it, you're going to get in a traffic jam. You know, a best friend is going to go have a bad day and just go off on you. You know, life in the world here, there's conflict. There's people banging around. So peace to me is not minding what happens. It's not, you may not like it, but there's a way in which you say, okay, that happened. That was part of the experience. But, you know, I don't mind what happens. And it's that acceptance is really it, because, you know, you're going to get a letter from the IRS someday. Oh boy, you know, that stuff happens here. So it's the inner state of that. Beautifully stated,
wonderfully stated, and well, you got a lot of wisdom inside your body, and thank you for sharing it with your movie and with your books, and it's all good, great stuff. All right, well, we're honored to put our interview up, and look forward to doing more good things with you, William.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time and for and all the stuff that you do. I mean, the peace thing, and just, you know, like I said, we all just do our part, and we just nudge the consciousness up a little whenever we can. And thank you for doing it.
There you go. We're all in it together. Thanks, William. You take care.
You too. Bye-bye.